Hi everyone, welcome to episode 11. You are listening to The Liberal Conservative, and today we are talking about Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic candidate for the New York City mayor. So listen, it's 2025, and by now we should all know that no one in politics rises without a sponsor. And that's not a conspiracy theory, that's pattern recognition. Whether you're red, blue, or claiming to be the new progressive vanguard, the system is built on power brokers, gatekeepers, and shadowy endorsements, thanks to Citizens United. And sometimes the most radical sounding candidates are the most carefully placed. So I too was all about Zohran Mamdani. I think I still am, but I think it's definitely important to pose all of these questions, to pose them strategically and to be very smart about the people that we're platforming, because it's important to understand that our system and our elections and our process has been materially compromised, and it's not all what it seems to be ever, right? So with that said, that brings me to a name you've probably seen floating through the headlines lately, and that is Zohran Mamdani. He's a New York Assembly member, son of intellectual elites, DSA-backed, pro-Palestine, as I am, advocates for state-run grocery stores. I have lots of questions about those. And to some, he's the future, and to others, he's a threat. But to me, he's a question. Where did he come from? So let's talk about his origin story, because no politicians, like I said, should be accepted at face value. Mamdani is the son of Mahmoud Mamdani, a globally known academic, and Mira Nair, a celebrated filmmaker. He grew up between Kampala and New York in an upper middle class household with international access, elite education, and deep cultural capital. That's not disqualifying by any means, but it's not working class either, which is what he's selling himself as. And when someone with that background suddenly rises up as a voice of the people in the most rigged political city in the country, like New York, it deserves some level, if not a lot of level, of scrutiny. So who opened the doors for him? Who protected him? Who protects him? Because people don't win in New York without protection, not against the big leagues of Cuomo's, not against the machine. He kind of has this untouchable effect. So Zohran Mamdani isn't being ignored by any means. He's being platformed. He's being fought, yes, but in the exact same way, that predictable way every establishment candidate is fought. He's called a socialist, a communist. Trump said he'd take over New York if Mamdani wins. That sounds radical, right? But it's also textbook. That's how the system creates mythology around controlled figures. Because when someone's a real threat, they don't just get headlines. They get erased, silenced, dismantled, ignored from the inside. Just look at how they treated Bernie Sanders in 2016. Media blackouts, DNC sabotage, super delicate manipulations. They didn't just fight Bernie, they annihilated him. Zohran Mamdani is not being annihilated. He's being threaded into the narrative. So the one issue that I really couldn't understand, and listen, I am a Cuban American, so of course this issue is going to cause some concern for me, and I'm usually a Democrat, Cuban American. I'm not like a Miami Republican who votes for Republicans just because. No, I'm not like that. I voted Democrat my entire life. But the one issue of Zohran's that I take a little bit of concern with, that I haven't really seen much information on, just like a quick like briefing on his website, but I haven't really seen or heard people ask more questions about this. And it's the state-owned groceries or state-controlled consumption. So let's talk policy first, because Mamdani's proposal to create city-run grocery stores sounds revolutionary on the surface, but when you dig deeper, the questions, they pile up really fast. Who decides what gets stopped? Who decides what people can buy? Will there be surveillance? Will there be restrictions based on income or digital ID status? This isn't a slippery slope argument. This is a power argument. During COVID, we watched food distribution become a tool of control. What happens when the city owns that control mechanism? What happens when it's branded as progressive? We deserve more than one-page policy PDF. We deserve transparency. And I live in New Jersey. I don't live in New York. So this podcast and this episode is for my New York friends. I hope that they listen to this, and I hope that they are going to attend town halls and that they're going to ask a lot of questions surrounding this topic. I feel like there's a curated resistance, right? Like, here's the pattern no one wants to talk about. Every generation, the system gives you a handful of so-called radicals to believe in. Obama, AOC, Bauman, Frost, Bush, Mamdani. They speak truth to power, they dress down, they tweet fire, but what legislation gets passed? What systems get dismantled? The answer is almost always none. Listen, guys, I had to break my own heart with Obama. First of all, he resembles my dad, and I lost my dad when he was 10. So right off the bat, I loved Obama just because of the way that he looked, right? Because he looked like my father, who was a Cuban American. He had style like my father, or he has style like my father. He has charisma like my father, all of those things, right? So when I started researching this podcast, I came across so many things that were very, very disheartening. But also I was very disheartened by his presence at the 2025 inauguration, because I thought to myself, him more than anyone is aware of the fraud that is Donald Trump. And yet he chose to be a fraud himself by, maintaining status quo and not really standing for anything, unlike his wife, who I absolutely adore, and she has more balls than he does. But I had to break my own heart. Anything from the mass deportations that he did to the food restrictions that he lifted, to the killing of Osama bin Laden that we celebrated. But when you do more research about the Middle East and all of the chaos that we've caused in that region, and all of the chaos, I'm not taking blame away from that region. They've caused plenty of chaos on their own for themselves, of course. But the United States and the imperial powers of the West have always inflicted pain on this region. And so, the hatred that they have for us is understood, for lack of a better word. So the purpose of a curated resistance is to absorb the rage, to direct it into safe lanes, to make people think change is coming while the machinery continues untouched, which is basically and exactly what Barack Obama did, right? So that's not resistance. That's just the design of our system. So if they treat you like a politician, then you are one, right? And Mamdani is being attacked, but he's not being dismantled. And that difference, that nuance really matters. Real threats to power don't get to win primaries, especially not in the biggest city in the country, if not the world. Real threats don't get press coverage, even negative, okay? Real threats get exiled, mocked, buried, like Bernie, like Assange, like Fred Hampton. So if Mamdani won a primary against a against a candidate like Cuomo, in the most machine-controlled city in America, ask yourself how and why, and who is going to benefit from a Mamdani win? Because when a corrupt system offers you Cuomo, Adams, and Mamdani, that's not a revolution, you guys, at all. That's just a casting call. So is he just another false prophet? Well, the system is showing its hand. It's giving us two men under investigation, Cuomo and Adams, as its establishment figures. And then it offers Mamdani as the alternative, young, brown, progressive, articulate, anti-war, pro-labor candidate. But in 2025, none of that means he's not a part of the machine. Because when they attack you the same way they attack every other candidate, it means you've been slotted in. The real revolutionaries are the ones that are silenced. So when the system gives you all of these candidates that are not revolutionary at all, and you start thinking about it this way, number one, you can ask better questions at town halls, right? Because you can ask these questions. That's the problem. The problem is that everything is curated. And I've thought of that for such a long time. I always watch these debates on television and I'm like, who is coming up with these questions? Why? Because they don't let you ask real questions. But at town halls, they do. That's why it's very important for us to attend them. Attend the town halls and ask the questions. Are you curated? Just simply and basic and up front. Because we feel like this is a menu of illusions. One corrupt, one authoritarian, one revolutionary. But the result is the same. Centralized control, rigged outcomes, and voter disillusionment. So we have to ask, is Mamdani just another carefully placed hope? A false prophet designed to soak up our radical energy and reroute it back into the system that never changes. This episode isn't about Mamdani, the person. It's about the power machine and how power curates its own opposition. Because no matter who wins, they always win. Because if the system is offering you a corrupt predator, a police state mayor, and a poetic socialist all at once, that's not democracy, that's misdirection. We deserve better than narratives. We deserve better than truth. We deserve the truth. The truth only lives where questions are allowed. So keep asking, keep watching, and keep resisting. This has been episode 11 of The Liberal Conservative. I'll see you next week.